Hey everyone, Michelle Seidling here with another episode of Food Experience Unplugged. Today we'll explore goal setting and how you can focus on strategies to achieve your goals all year long. Here to help us do that is Austin Bollinger, founder of Daily New Year's and author of the book Crush Your Goals. Trade your old tired resolutions for a goal setting strategy that gets results. This podcast is available on multiple platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and others, as well as our website at foodexperienceunplugged.com. Please be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform for new content as it becomes available. Please also check out our website at foodexperienceunplugged.com for some free resources as you begin your health journey. Austin Bollinger, welcome to Food Experience Unplugged.
Hey, thanks for having me. So glad to be here.
Oh, well, we are sure happy to have you here, author of Crush Your Goals, and really to have taken the goal setting world, if nothing else, by storm as far as really trying to make a difference when people set goals. And we're really happy to have you here and really dissect what it means to strategize your goals and really make a difference.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, to begin with, will you introduce yourself a little bit and what brought you to this point in your life and in your career?
Yeah, well, as you said, my name is Austin Bollinger, and my path to where I'm at now is a winding one. So I graduated college in 2010 with a graphic design degree and found it wasn't something I wanted to do. I tried video production. 7, 8 years ago, I joined a technology company. I was a project manager building websites, and I got into software development as a product manager. And eventually, I worked my way up in the company that I was with to COO. And my favorite part of my job was coaching my colleagues. So, as they came to me with career questions, cultural questions internally, and so I loved coaching people. And I've always been kind of a self starter, been highly ambitious. I've always been fascinated with personal development, goal setting, focus, prioritization. So I read a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts. And in 2017, I decided to start a blog. And the whole blog started with this idea of, I was at the gym one morning and I was the only person there. It was in October. And I was talking to a lot of people about how empty the gym was. And a lot of people's response was, yeah, I need to get back in the gym, but I'm going to wait until January. That's going to be my resolution. And I would always say, well, why would you waste 3 months? What's so special about January 1st? Why put off what you could start today? And so I just had this name jump in my head, Daily New Year's. And so I started a blog talking about what if we took the same inspiration and motivation we get on January 1st and just woke up one day and said, you know what, today's day one. Doesn't matter what day it is, but today's my New Year's, right? And started blogging about that. And it's a pretty narrow corner of content to write about. So I started writing about goal setting, prioritization, and all these different things, leadership, how to build teams and culture. And the more I talk about goal setting, the more I loved it, the mindset and everything that goes with it. And about a year and a half into blogging, I said, you know what, I'm going to put this in a book. And Crush Your Goals was born from the blog, I guess you could say.
Wow, that is amazing. I love how just out of a conversation about the gym, how that really,
Yeah.
really put things forward in motion, so to speak.
Yeah,
But
it was very odd how it all just I was deadlifting and literally the name Daily New Year's just jumped in my head. I don't know where it came from, divine intervention or just the meditative state that I achieve while I have no idea. But it's been a wonderful journey ever since then.
okay, that's fantastic. So why the book? You mentioned it kind of where it was born from your blog, but why did you feel driven to write the book? What's different about the book than other types of, goal setting that people may
Yeah.
encounter?
That's a great question. So, truth be told, in my career at Element 74 in the website world, I was also in marketing a lot. And so, content marketing, as we podcasters and bloggers know, is incredibly important. You need to build email lists, you need to build community. And I was going to write a quick little 40-page ebook to give away for free. And as I started writing it and pulling together blog posts, I had like 100 pages. And I was like, man, I almost have enough here to make a full book. And it's funny that you asked, why is it different? Because a great mentor of mine When I told him I was writing a book, he said, "What's going to make your book so much different than the books that are out there? What's going to be better or different than Zig Ziglar's book on goals or Brian Tracy's book on goals?" And he really got me thinking about that approach. And so my book, I really wanted it to be a guide, a handbook, if you will, very linear and chronological, starting with there's four sections with four chapters each. Section one is all about building the right mindset, overcoming fear, addressing why has goal setting let us down in the past, and how do we hit the reset button. Section two is goal setting strategies. Goal setting, or section three is how to build a network and a routine and a support system around your goals to help you succeed. And section four is about how to overcome obstacles, difficulties, and all those things that are going to knock us off the horse occasionally, and how to get back on track. So, my book is not meant to be one of those that you sit down and read it in a weekend. It's meant to be kind of, I don't want to say textbook because I don't want people to think it's dry and boring, but it's very much meant to be chapter one. I'm going to dive into this. I'm going to do the worksheets and the exercises that go with chapter one, and then I'm going to go to chapter two. And so it really builds you a solid foundation to build upon. And so that's why I think it's so different.
Okay, I love that. It's more of a hands-on book that you take with
Yeah,
you when you're going about your day.
yeah, absolutely. And every chapter has worksheets that come with the book for free. There's 29 worksheets total. You can do them all, or you can do the ones that resonate with you. But it's a very hands-on book. Yeah.
Oh, that is fantastic. So to back up for a minute, what exactly do we mean by goals, and how is that different from things like habits or plans or other concepts that people may be familiar with?
That's a great question. So I believe that goals aren't meant to make you perfect. They're meant to make you better than you were before. So, habits and routines, I think I talk about them a lot in my book. I think habits and routines can help support our goals, but our goals are those things that we want for ourselves in life. Whether your goal is to own a lake house someday, or your goal is to get the corner office at work, or your goal is to, build a deck on the back of your house or run your first half marathon, whatever those things are, to me, those are goals. They're things we're striving for, they're things that we're shooting for. And then we can build habits and routines to help us achieve those. But there's other strategies as well. So, I have a goal to drink 115 ounces of water of every day. And that's a tiny goal and it's a
Mhm.
habit and it's kind of a routine, but that's something I track and monitor daily. My goal is to go to the gym 5 days a week. And I may only hit that 3 days this week, but it's better than zero. And so I really think a lot of people set goals and it's kind of pass fail. But for me,
Mm,
goals are just a system of improvement. They're ways that we improve our lives and keep striving for the things we want.
interesting. So, do people sometimes people say, "Well, I just don't have any goals." Do people honestly don't not have goals, or maybe they don't consider them as goals?
I think it's more the latter. My wife is that way. When I talk about self improvement, personal development, and goal setting, she's like, I just don't have any goals. But when you really start talking to her, she's like, you know what? I'd really like to paint the front door on the house this weekend. And I'll say that's a goal. You're pre planning something you want to do by a certain deadline. Call it what you want to call it, a to do list. But to me, that's a goal. My goal is to get that door painted this weekend, which is something I actually have to do, by the way. Um, Sometimes goals are thrust upon us, right? But I think everyone has goals. I think sometimes people are afraid to admit they have goals and dreams because if we don't admit we have dreams or goals, then we can't be let down if they don't come true. So I
Mm,
think as younger people, as children, we all have hopes and dreams, but then we start working, we start paying bills, we kind of fall into a routine that is life, and we forget about those things we said we wanted someday, and we kind of maybe stop setting or acknowledging those goals. And I challenge people to, you know, shoot for the stars, and if you or shoot, what is that saying? Shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you might hit a star, kind of thing. So you may not hit the exact goal that you want, but striving for something bigger and better could take you somewhere completely unknown. It may not look the way you thought it would.
sure, absolutely. Now, if someone's at the point where they don't want to admit they have goals or anything like that, but yet they do. What is kind of I guess, the road from point A to point B to really motivate them to say, yes, I've got goals, and here's, I'm going to paint the door this weekend, or whatever other thing they may be involved in.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, painting the door is kind of a smaller thing, but for a long time, my wife wasn't super happy with her job. And she knows she's capable of more. She wants more, and she's always been so fascinated by real estate. She grew up in that. Her grandparents did it. She loves it, and so I've encouraged her for years, like, why don't you get your license and dip your toe into this and try to be an agent? And she's finally doing that this year. She finally set a goal to get her license um, and to strive for that, but I think it stems from not so much motivation, but fear. Like I mentioned, fear of shooting for it. Maybe you don't make it and you find yourself let down along the way. Or maybe what you want, you're afraid people will make fun of you or ridicule you or judge you for wanting something that maybe they don't understand. So I have a whole chapter in the book about fear. Fear of failure is huge. What if I try and it doesn't work? Some people are afraid of success. Like, I'm
Mhm.
comfortable here in my zone, but what if I set this goal and actually achieve it and can't handle the next level, you know? And so I
Yeah.
think a lot of people don't set goals because it's fear. It's not necessarily motivation. If they can get past their fear, then it becomes like, okay, staying motivated to keep working towards it for the long term. Does that make sense?
It does. So now you talk a lot about mindset. So does
Mhm.
that play a role in overcoming fear, and how does that tie into to that and to goal setting?
Yeah, I think mindset is critical. So, the mission behind Daily New Year's before I wrote the book was to actually get people to ditch the whole New Year's resolution process. Why wait until January 1st? Why not try to be better every day? And I think that's a huge key mindset that as long as we're striving to improve our lives or to get things that we want or make improvements, then even if it's 1% progress daily, you're making improvement. Um, you know, some people believe in failure. I tend to not even believe in failure. My mindset tells me that if I fail, that's the first attempt in learning, which is an acronym for fail. I think as long as you learn a lesson, then it wasn't a true failure. And so these little mindset shifts can really help us achieve goals and stay productive and be high performers longer than to succumb to, like, well, I failed, so I might as well not try, or what if I fail, and so I may as well not even start. So I do think mindset is very critical.
Mm. So basically, you're kind of eh, reasoning in yourself, so to speak, or just kind of thinking, okay, regardless whether I succeed, whether I fail, I'm going for this goal. I'm going for
Mhm.
this to achieve that.
Yeah. Yeah, and another mindset is just expectations.
Mhm.
If you are shooting for a goal, I tell my wife all the time, you might get your real estate license, find out maybe you don't necessarily love real estate, but you fall into a career as an interior designer. So be prepared to accept the unexpected, not to expect it, but to accept it when it happens. So I think we get so steadfast in our minds, like, okay, this is what I'm aiming for. It has to look exactly this way. It has to meet this criteria, or it's wrong, or I failed, or I'm not going to like it. So as you strive to achieve your goals, allow yourself to grow and evolve and change, and kind of go with the flow a little bit. So I think that's another key mindset too. I see a lot of people who will set a goal and maybe it's not a goal they really wanted for themselves, but
Mm.
they won't abandon it because they said, well, I'm going to do it and I don't want to stop. But sometimes I'll set a goal and be like, you know what, I don't want this after all, I'm going to pivot and go this way. So I think that's important too, is just giving yourself some grace and some flexibility to experiment with yourself and find out what you really want from life.
Sure, and that just kind of helps people to explore a little bit more too, and maybe their goal wasn't quite like what you were saying, not quite up to what they wanted, but then they discover this whole new avenue that could lead
Yeah,
to a career or whatever.
yeah, absolutely.
So, well, that's fantastic. So, what you have obviously worked with so many different people with regard to the book, with regard to in your coaching and other things. What success stories can you share with us that where people have really implemented this, have really been focused and crushed their goals, so to speak?
Yeah. So For me, the mindset is so important. So my role as a coach is to help people believe in themselves, to go for things that they wouldn't normally go for. And so, key example, I won't share her name, but one of my colleagues before in a prior job, she was having a lot of stress and anxiety, and through some coaching, I kind of helped her uh, find out how to better deal with that. And so she got into running. She was never really into athletics, but she got into running and she started enjoying it quite a bit. Um, her goal was just to have an outlet for her stress. And so she started running and it was helping tremendously. But then a month or two into it, her times weren't improving, her longevity wasn't improving. And so she started getting anxious and stressed out about her running. And, she kind of made a chore out of it. And so I said, "What was your goal? Why did you start running?" And she said, "To alleviate some stress and some anxiety." And I said, "So does the time matter? Does the how far you're running matter?" And she said, "Well, no, not really." I said, "Okay, so are you stressing out about are you taking your stress reliever and turning it into a stressor?" And so a lot of times it's just helping people with things like that. We lose track of why we started. She
Mm,
started just to relieve stress, and then she ended up thinking that she should be improving. She should be getting faster or running longer, and that's not why she did it. Um, I'm helping another person since I've written a book, write his own book. And so, I've been there, I've done it. I know the pitfalls, I know the struggles, and we meet weekly to check in on his progress. And I try to help him break his goal down. It's easy to say you want to have a book done by December 31st, but what are all the checkpoints and milestones that we need to meet between now and then? And so it's just working with people, breaking things down, and helping them stay accountable, I guess, are just those are a couple examples.
mhm. Oh, I love that. I love how you're just kind of making it a little less ominous rather than just one
Yeah.
big goal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's most people will set a goal, and this is why I discourage New Year's resolutions. Typically, they are big, grandiose things we want to do, and we very rarely have a plan of attack or how we're going to achieve those things. And that's why 2 or 3 weeks into January we quit because we set the bar far too high and we don't know how to achieve such a big goal. So I like to help people break things down. I always say, take your goal, list out every step that you have to take to make that goal reality, and keep breaking it down until none of the steps scare you anymore. If you
Okay.
feel like, okay, I can do everything on this list, then it's just a matter of doing it in the right order. But if you just have this giant goal on a whiteboard and you don't know what to do next, you're going to just kind of spin your wheels. You're going to quit trying and you're going to lose track. So, as a coach, I love to help people break things down.
I love that. That is just really what does it mean to, paint the door? Okay, I got to go buy paint. I got to, set aside a couple hours on my Saturday or
Yeah.
whatever the case
And
is.
yeah, clean all the residue and dirt and dust off of it. And yeah, put the drop cloth down and just all the different things. But yeah, yeah.
Sure. And so do you feel what's the transformation, when people first start out, with your coaching or your other conversations, it's I mean, how do they get from the feeling of overwhelm to management, and it's kind of like an I got this type of mentality.
Yeah, I think overwhelms a place in which people, or a place where a lot of people begin because we have all these things we think we want to do. We have different goals competing with one another. I have things I want to do. I have things that my wife wants me to do, things we want to do together. I have things my boss wants me to do. And it's easy to get overwhelmed. And so I really love to help people prioritize. I want to help them figure out what their number one thing is. If you haven't read the book, The One Thing by Jay Papasan and Gary Keller, it asks the question, what's the one thing I can do to make everything else easier or no longer relevant? And
Mm,
that helped me tremendously last year. I was writing my book. I was trying to maintain my blog, I was trying to maintain my podcast I was overwhelmed. And I realized that the book was my most important thing. So I try to help clients and friends and whoever just really hone in on what's most important. Can we focus on that? Let them know, empower them to know that they can put some things on a shelf. You have all these things you want to do. It's okay to put a few things away for, I operate in quarters. So in Q1, here's my 3 goals. These goals I have, but I'm going to set them aside for Q2 and 3 and 4. And so they're not forgotten, they're not gone. And so I try to help people do that. And then when you see them rack up a couple of wins, they hit one goal, they hit two goals, they hit three goals, they start to see that by limiting the amount of things we're working on, we rack up success faster. And then that is like a perpetual energy source. You start to
Mm,
believe like, okay, I've got this. It's when we let overwhelm creep back in. We stop thinking about all the things we have to do. Suddenly we're overwhelmed. And so that's when we have to take a pause and say, okay, let's evaluate everything we have going on and start taking these things one or two at a time. And
mm,
so I think racking up quick wins really gives people the confidence to keep going.
sure. And then they get that motivation, and then they're more likely, I presume, to set a new goal, or maybe extend a current goal.
Yeah, I call it the domino effect, which is something I borrowed from I forget which book now, but you knock over the science behind the domino is kind of fascinating. So one domino can knock over the next domino one and a half times its own size. So in a
Mm.
string of 13 dominoes, the first one might be the size of an SD card in your phone. The 13th domino might weigh 150 pounds. But that succession of that sequence can topple all those dominoes. If you go to YouTube, you can look up the domino effect. This guy proves that this is possible. And so that's what quick wins do. You get that first domino to topple, and then you take that energy and the momentum into the second goal, the third goal. And before you know it, you're just taking down these big goals that you thought you could never do because you're building upon previous success.
I love that. That's really getting the domino effect started, and
Yeah,
just that and hopefully that's contagious among. Have you
yeah.
found that to be the case with some of your coaching clients or others?
I would say so. Yeah, I have a couple coaching clients now that the reason we're working together, they're local to where I live here, and they saw me write the book. They see me doing these things, blogging, and they're like, "Hey, you're a doer. I want you to help me be a doer too." Because it's easy to say that you want to do these big things, but they want to know, how do we get started? How do we keep the momentum? How do we maintain consistency? How do we build a routine that supports our goals? And so through coaching, I help people discover what that looks like for them. Your
Mm,
routine, your blueprint may look totally different than mine, but that's what I try to help people do.
absolutely. And then they are more apt to see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, I think again back to New Year's resolutions, and I love New Year's. It's a great time of reflection, and I plan my year's worth of goals on New Year's. But typically with resolutions, we are trying to take down the huge 150-pound domino all at once when we could just back up, dissect it, and knock over that tiny little domino that gets the chain reaction started. And it seems so simple in theory or talking about it, but in practice and in principle, it's hard to back up and see that and say, you know what, if I just did this one little thing and then this next little thing. And so I just try to help people realize that for themselves and apply that.
Sure. So in your coaching and other conversations, so do you not, focus, okay, it's January 1st. What are you going to do? Is it more just an overall conversation, regardless of what time it is in the year or what day it is?
Yeah, to me, timelines are not as important as priorities. So I function quarterly. At the beginning of the year, I write down all the things I want to do, and I try to chunk them by quarters so I know what's coming up. Sometimes things get delayed or accelerated, but with clients, I really encourage them that the first thing I ask is, what's the number one thing that you want to achieve, or what are the top two or three things you want to achieve, and when do you want to achieve them by? And when then they say, okay, well, I'd love to do it by you know whenever, 3 months from now. I'm like, all right, well, what's everything that we have to do to make that happen? Is this timeline realistic? So I try to work backwards from that. And then it's all about starting now. Okay, well, if you want to get it done, let's not waste time. If it's August 13th or whenever it is, let's start right now. Let's not prolong this. So you can start in the middle of the quarter, you can start in the middle of the month, in the middle of the week. To me, time's not important. What a lot of people do, and this is kind of, I see this all the time, is people would almost rather make incremental progress on 10 things than massive progress on one thing. And that's the
Mm,
biggest shift I try to help people make, because when you're doing incremental progress on 10 things, you never get that win. You never
mm,
feel that sense of accomplishment or victory, and you wear yourself out doing 10 things. So, if I were to take on a coaching client right now, I might say, okay, which of these things do you want to focus on through the end of this quarter? And then next quarter, we'll reevaluate and kind of reset and then get on a quarterly cadence from there, if that makes sense.
Sure. So you emphasize to them to, yes, it's good to have 10 different goals, but let's kind of prioritize them and, okay, what are we going to work on right now so that you can see progress being made?
Yes. Yes. And it's
Okay.
like, would you rather have one awesome thing done or 10 things perpetually undone? And it's so hard to get people to make that shift because it truly doesn't feel as productive at first because you
Mm-hmm.
see yourself making slight progress on all these different things. And that feels productive. We do this at work, we do this in all aspects of our lives. Even when we're cleaning the house, we try to multitask and run from room to room. But if we just focus on one thing at a time, like, all right, I got the bathroom done. Now I got the kitchen done. That feels better once you get used to it.
Definitely. And then you're less overwhelmed and you're seeing the wins a little bit sooner than if you were just taking a little chunk out of a goal.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I write my daily wins down every single day. What was something I can celebrate today? What can I call a win? Some days they're huge things. Like, hey, I was on a podcast today. That's a huge win. I love this. Some days it's like, hey, I finally sat down and did my budget, my personal finances. I've been putting that off for 3 weeks, and I finally sat down and did it. So your wins can be uh, any scale, but when we focus on them, it renews our confidence. So a lot of days I'll come home from work and be like, man, I didn't get anything done today, but I still force myself to sit down and say, what were some wins that I can be proud of today? And it shifts my perspective on how I view this day. Like, okay, there were 5 things that were awesome about today. And then I apply that energy. I review that in the morning and I apply that energy to the next day. So I just don't think we can understate the value of celebrating our successes, no matter how big or small.
I like that. What's interesting is, when people say I didn't get anything done, what they really mean perhaps is I didn't get done the things that, were on my little
Yes.
list.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
that,
Or you
that's
wanted to get 5 things done and you only got 1 big one done because you underestimated the time it would take. It's like you didn't get nothing done. You got this one huge thing done. If it took all day today, it would have taken all day tomorrow. So feel good about that. Okay, that's I got it done. It's out of the way. I've cleared my path for those 4 other things. And so it's just again circling all the way back to mindset. It's how you look at it.
Sure, absolutely. Now, what are some steps people can take if they want to get started today or, whatever their time frame is to really get serious with their goals?
Yeah, I think it depends on the person and where they're at because I think your goals that you're pursuing today should be in alignment and should be congruent with where you see your life going long term. Now, long term could be 5 years or 25 years. All the goals I'm setting for myself are contributing towards the vision I have for my life 20 years from now. Now, if you're listening and you don't know what your goals are for this week, that could be very scary, right? And so I challenge people to really sit down and think about where they want their dream life to go and what can you start doing today to bring some alignment towards that. What can you do to align yourself with the direction you hope to go? Start thinking about that because then a lot of times your goals will kind of fall into place like, oh, okay, well, if that's where I want to be, I need to do this, I need to do that, and etc. But if you're overwhelmed and you just have a ton of stuff going on, I like to do what I call an overwhelm audit. Just write down everything that comes to mind that you have to do, whether it's something your spouse or partner, something for the kids, something for your boss, something for yourself. Just get a clean sheet of paper and start writing, and then you can start prioritizing. That's a good way to start sometimes, kind of clear out some of that clutter. When you do that, then you can begin to focus on some bigger picture type things. I'm working on an online course right now that's the working title is Refine Your Focus and Eliminate Your Overwhelm. And this whole course is helping people hone their focus, get rid of all of the little stuff that's wearing them out and stressing them out, and bringing focus to their lives so that they can focus on 1 or 2 big things at a time. And so I think that's the hardest place to start is when you have a ton going on, it's difficult to focus. So sometimes just getting all that out on a whiteboard or paper can really help you see, like, oh my goodness, I am trying to do too much. Like, no one could do this. And so I need to trim.
Absolutely. So I love that, and I love your course idea as well.
Thank you.
S- So, how can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, the best place is my blog, dailynewyears.com. I have a website for my book, crushyourgoalsbook.com. The links to that are on Daily New Year's. But yeah, Daily New Year's is where I post all my articles, all the information about me and my books. My podcast episodes are there. When I'm featured on podcasts, I like to embed them on that website as well. So that's really my central hub for everything that I do.
Okay. Well, we will include all of those in the show notes. And so you mentioned you're working on an online course right now. What's on the horizon for you? What are your goals that you're working toward?
What are my goals? That's a great question. So right now, I am loading my course into Teachable. This quarter, I plan the outline. My background is graphic design, video, all these different things. So I outlined the course. I filmed myself doing the course, and then I edited my own course. So I'm finally through all of that, and now I'm actually compiling the course. So once I get done with that, obviously I'm going to start marketing and promoting. I'm going to circle back around to my book. I launched it in February, and I almost immediately moved on to the course. And so I didn't really give my book the due diligence it deserved. I kind of launched it, and then I was like, all right, next thing. I didn't really stop to celebrate that, and so I want to circle back to the book and try to uh, build more of an audience around it. I typically blog and podcast weekly. And when I take on another big project, such as the book or my course, I put that on hold. So next quarter, I'm probably going to spend some time re engaging with my blog. I have a lot of article ideas that I need to write. I have a lot of guests lined up for my show that I want to record. So probably going from there. Long term, I want to continue building my coaching business. I want to get more into public speaking, which is hard right now with COVID and all that's going on. But I'm speaking at a writers conference in October, and I think another conference in September here in Cape Girardeau, where I live. So some smaller stuff, but I'm trying to get that experience so I can speak to bigger groups. Because ultimately, everything I do, I like to say, is not about me. It's about the people that I'm speaking to. It's about the transformation that I hope to help them achieve. It's about what they are capable of and can do in their lives. And so everything I do, everything that I put out, that's the goal, is to help people transform.
I love that. That is amazing. Really love your focus and, being willing, okay, I've got to circle back to the book and, just different aspects and just keeping visibility and lessening overwhelm. Hopefully
Yeah.
you don't feel overwhelmed too much.
I don't. Like I said, last year I was trying to write the book and podcast weekly and blog weekly, and I was extremely overwhelmed. I was that guy that I am, talking to now, or that girl, where it's like, hey, you can't do these 10 big things all at once. You need to do one or two and shelve the rest. And that's a huge lesson I learned last year. I was so stressed. I had been working on the book from January to July and hadn't made a lot of progress. And as soon as I put the podcast and blog on hold and said, sorry, guys, I'm going to be gone for a few months, then I just freed myself up to do nothing but write through the end of the year. So July to December. And I had the whole book done. And so once I allowed myself
Mhm,
to focus, it was easy breezy. Not everything about writing a book is easy, but I didn't have all these other things competing for my time. And
mhm.
so if you're listening and you're stressed and you're overwhelmed, I encourage you to audit everything that you think you have to do and try to compartmentalize and save some things for later.
Thank you so much, Austin. It's been a pleasure, and I'm excited for your book and for your other endeavors. I'm grateful that you're crushing your goals, so to speak, and that you're helping so many people to do so as well.
Yes, thank you. And I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to come on your show and for the opportunity to get my message out there. I appreciate it.